All right, let's talk about what's wrong with the internet explanation. There's a couple of things wrong with it, similar to the problems with the internet explanation for Lost Highway. Um, people, here's what people want to do. What they want to do is they want an explanation. They're hit with a movie that doesn't make sense, and they want it to make sense. And so instead of living with the mystery and thinking about the complexities of it, they just want to quickly go, I'm confused. Make me unconfused. And then once they get any kind of explanation, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Naomi Watts is psychotic and she had a terrible life, but she had like a psychotic break where she imagined she had a happy life, but really she committed suicide. That's a kind of explanation. It does allow you to do a couple of things. It allows you to stop thinking about Mulholland Drive, the movie. And for a lot of people, that's what they want to do. They just want to move on with their lives and not be confused and not think about things. They want the answers rather than thinking about the questions. They also want to believe that she over there, that character, is fucking crazy. I'm not crazy. This has nothing to do with me. This is just a movie about a psychotic person with a mental break, and I'm not like that. But as I keep pointing out, it's not a square, it's a cube, right? It's not just about what's happening to the characters on screen. It's about the relationship between the characters on screen and me, the audience, right? The lessons of, that's why Club Silencio is so confusing to everybody, because they don't understand what it could mean for the characters. It's not about the characters. It's about you. You're the one watching something that's a recording and believing that it's real, even though you know it's not real, but you still somehow believe that it is. That's why you're crying when characters die. Those characters aren't real. No one died. This is how movies work. The explanation that Naomi wants is just a psychotic person doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. For starters, like Lost Highway, where people go, oh, the first part is reality and everything with Pete is a psychotic break, doesn't explain the mysterious videotapes and any of the weird things in the first part of the movie, or the Mystery Man or whatever. Um, the other in Mulholland Drive, it's not as dramatic as that, but like people are like, oh, that part after the box, that's Naomi Watts being sad, that's reality. Well, the dialogue when she had naked Laura Herring on her couch didn't seem like realistic dialogue. Also, I don't know if you've ever been dumped before, but I hope that none of you hired a professional hitman to murder the person you're in love with. Um, so it's worth thinking about not as one is reality and one is some kind of fantasy land, but that they're different kinds of stories. They're two versions of the same story that, like Wizard of Oz, like Vertigo, they have some similarities and some differences. Um, you can kind of see, though, if you want to see the first part of the movie as like a fantasy wish fulfillment, that Naomi Watts' situation is really bad, but that the first part represents a wish fulfillment. There is a lot to that. It's not crazy. It works a lot. For starters, like in the real world, she had her girlfriend assassinated by a hitman. So in the fantasy land, she imagines, well, what if at the moment she was going to get assassinated, some teenagers crashed their car and she escaped and she got amnesia? Wouldn't that be wonderful if she got amnesia? Because then you could start over. You ever break up with somebody and wish you had it to do again? When you get dumped and you're like, if only I do it differently the next time. That's what she gets. She gets a second chance with someone. Um, and and apparently in the second half of in the second part of the movie, Laura Herring is really mean and cruel. Well, in the first half, she's got amnesia and is very dependent on Betty. That's wonderful. The director was really mean to her in the real world and stole her girlfriend and didn't put her in the movie. Well, she gets her revenge on the director in Fantasyland because his wife cheats on him, right? And he gets splattered with pink paint. He gets bankrupt. He gets harassed by the mob. There's also like the mob exists as like an explanation for why she didn't get cast. In the second part of the movie, we learn she's not a very successful actress. She just had some kind of minor role in this movie that Laura Herring had the lead in. But in the fantasy land, the reason she didn't get cast was because the mob forced him to pick someone else. Had nothing to do with her not being talented. She was very talented. It must have been the mob's fault. She's finding people to blame. Um, Right, that's why there's that whole scene with the incompetent hitman. It's important that the hitman be incompetent because she wishes the hit didn't go well so that Laura Herring could be spared and they could start over and try again. And hey, how about a bag full of money? Um, so it does function as a kind of fantasy land, but I think it's worth pointing out that the second part of the movie, the so-called reality part, it's also pretty unrealistic. You don't assassinate people that broke your heart. Um, and also, Laura Herring is impossibly beautiful and impossibly evil in that second part. And what's with that neighbor? Remember the neighbor? We're just like, who came? I'm just gonna get my stuff back, Diane. Another way of looking at the movie is something much simpler. Well, it's actually more complicated, but right, that there's multiple levels to this thing, right? That what if Naomi Watts moved to Hollywood and just had a regular affair with her neighbor? And then that's why they switched apartments, because they moved in, they were using the same apartment to live in together, and then they broke up and she had to go back to, they separated. Um, so what if she just had an affair with a regular dark-haired neighbor and they just broke up, and that's depressing. And she's an unsuccessful actress. That's depressing. And then she spins a fantasy. Instead of just being a dumpy regular person she had an affair with, what if it was an impossibly evil, beautiful woman, right? And she's so evil and so beautiful that Naomi Watts had to have her assassinated. And then she takes a fantasy one more level up and goes, what if she never got assassinated because the car, got hit by teenagers at the moment and she left with amnesia? And then, right, I just came to LA and met her, right? So it's like Inception, where there's like a level where Naomi Watts just had an affair with her neighbor. And then she imagines a sexier version of that story with assassins and perfect makeup on Laura Herring. But then at the end of that story, she assassinates her. So she imagines another level where she has amnesia and everything went really well and she was super successful. These are all different levels of fantasy. And like Norma Desmond, Naomi Watts wants to believe in something other than reality. Even a tragic story is better than the dumpy reality of just, you got dumped. It's sad. Um, the real horror isn't that you assassinated someone and committed murder. The real horror is that your life is just crummy. And she wants a better one. And when you think about that, an actress who moves to Hollywood to make movies, isn't it interesting that all of the dream, the first part where everything, was much happier for her, is drenched in Hollywood genres: the musical, the monster movie, the mafia movie, the cowboy movie, the I'm forgetting some, but porn. But there's like there's all these different genres of the Law and Order cop story. There's all these different genres of film. Why? Because her fantasy world is built off of the different kinds of movies she's seen. So is ours. When we think about and imagine what life could be, we're often inspired by movies. We want life to be more exciting than it is. Like, there's a reason why I'm so obsessed with the X-Men, and it's because I want to be like Professor Xavier and teach at this amazing, cool school. It's like a cooler version of the job I already have. I have like a cool job teaching students, but what if we were all psychics together and we fought evil mutants or whatever, right? Like, I mean, people have these. It's why all of your teachers love Harry Potter, by the way, because it's like school, but with magic. And I just like school, but with mutants or whatever. So people have their fantasies, and Naomi Watts's character is just like us. She's just like us. Because one of the things that Club Silencio points out is that the actors pretend to be other people, and we pretend to believe they are those people. Right? Christian Bale says, "I'm Batman," but Christian Bale's not Batman. He's pretending to be Batman. But we pretend. He pretends he's Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. He pretends he's Batman, but we also pretend he's Batman. This is what Mulholland Drive is about. It's about how movies work and how actors pretend and trick you, but you want to be tricked. You want to live in a fantasy land like Norma Desmond, like Naomi Watts. You want to live in this kind of amazing world. And that's what makes the movie so confusing, is that it's multiple levels of fantasy, sort of layered on top of each other. And like that monster, that creature is some kind of demon behind the alleyway, but he's also just a homeless guy. Because that's, again, something Hollywood does to people, that people move out there and they want to be. LA has an incredibly huge homeless population. It's one of the things people want to work in the movie industry, and then they can't find work or they get in trouble and they end up living on the street. Skid Row, it's one of the most famous areas for homeless people in America, and it's in LA. Right next to all those movie star mansions. And that guy is a symbol of evil and terribleness, but also just like the way Hollywood chews people up and spits them out. Um, Mulholland Drive is an analysis of Hollywood and what Hollywood does to women, but also what it does to all of us. That we believe in these. We want to live in a fantasy land. We're just like Naomi Watts, because all of our world is drenched in fantasy fantasizing stereotypes that we get from the Hollywood movies, because the people have these dreams, but the dreams are processed by Hollywood movies. That's who makes the dreams. That gives us the images for a lot of our dreams. And Mulholland Drive is an analysis of these forces. I think I'm done for now. I think that was Mulholland Drive. I might pick it up and make another video if I think of more stuff after I turn this off, but I think we may have successfully completed David Lynch's Mulholland Drive and reached the end of Unit 3. Oh, I have more shit to say. No, there's one more video coming.